It's a crime to be in the park after hours. This is considered a park. So.
All right, I'll go find another place to watch a movie.
All right, you got your ID on you real quick?
No, I don't.
You're not shutting the door. You're not free to leave.
Yeah, I am.
You're not.
Do you remember this case? This is 62-year-old Kevin Hinton. He had just driven 11 hours on a road trip back from meeting his brand new baby granddaughter in Oregon, and he was too tired to continue driving, so he pulled over into this parking lot and he took a nap. Shortly afterwards, he encountered Sergeant Clay Hilton with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office.
I'm being rude?
Yes.
And how is that?
How is that? I'm trying to explain to you, you're in the park after hours and you're committing a crime.
That's a
You're
crime?
not. It is. Yes.
No, it's not.
Within 3 minutes, Hilton would forcibly remove Mr. Hinton from his vehicle in such a way as to leave him with 8 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a severe concussion, a shoulder injury, and a disfigured lip.
You are going to get hurt.
You hit me so many times. Why? Why did you hit me?
Because you weren't listening.
Almost a year ago, back when this happened, I did a video on this, and at that point, the officer had been placed on leave, and there was an investigation. Well, that investigation ended. Criminal charges have now been filed. Also, a civil lawsuit has been filed. I have a copy of it, and it has some interesting stuff in it. I'm going to go over it, and actually, some of this is absolutely insane. There was an initial use of force report that was reviewed by the supervisor, and the supervisor approved it. And after these officers turned their body cams off, the medical staff on the scene allegedly looked at this man and they medically cleared him and they tried to take him to jail and the jail says no, send him to the hospital. Turns out he's got all sorts of broken ribs, he's got a collapsed lung, among other things. This whole time they kept him in handcuffs. Supervisors approved everything until this was exposed and you found out about it. But before we get to it, many of you have discovered that it can be nearly impossible to find a civil rights lawyer. Although I get calls from all around the country every day, I'm only one person, and I only take specific types of cases, and only in West Virginia. The good news is that if you need a lawyer because you've been injured, you can hire America's largest injury law firm, no matter what state you're in. Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 attorneys in all 50 states. Because they're the biggest, they have the ability not to settle for lowball offers. Last year in Florida, they got a victim who was in a life-altering car crash, $12.2 million. The insurance only offered them $350,000. They got another victim in New York, $6.8 million. The insurance only offered the victim $275,000. Best part, their service is free unless you win. It only takes a few minutes to see if you have a case. You can submit a claim and communicate with your legal team all from your smartphone. If you've been seriously injured, it will only take a couple of minutes to start a claim with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/thecivilrightslawyer, found in the description below. It was after 10:30 p.m. on August 14th, Hinton pulled into the parking lot at Terrace View Park to nap. He pulled off his shoes, yanked a pillow over, and turned on a movie to fall asleep to. His pet umbrella cockatoo, Lily, was nested in the passenger seat. At about 11:45 p.m., Spokane County Sheriff's Office Sergeant Clay Hilton shined a flashlight into the window of Hinton's Audi and told him he was committing a crime by being in the park after hours.
How you doing?
Good. You're being audio and video recorded. It's a crime to be in the park after hours. This is considered a park. So.
All right, I'll go find another place to watch a movie.
All right, you got your ID on you real quick?
No, I don't.
You're not shutting the door. You're not free to leave.
Yeah, I am.
You're not.
Why are you acting like that?
Because you're kind of being rude.
I'm being rude?
Yes.
And how is that?
How is that? I'm trying to explain to you, you're in the park after hours and you're committing a crime.
That's a
You're
crime?
Not. It is. Yes.
No, it's not.
You want to bet?
It's a civil offense.
It's not. Do you have your ID?
Really?
With you?
No, I don't have my ID on me.
Buy one, I'll take another.
So is this a crime? Sergeant Hilton tells Mr. Hinton it's a crime to be in the park after hours and this is considered a park. According to the lawsuit filed by Mr. Hinton's lawyers, it says Sergeant Hilton is factually inaccurate. It is not a crime to be in Terrace View Park at any time of the day or night, and the location where Mr. Hinton was parked is not part of any park within the meaning of the Spokane Valley Code. And get this, Sergeant Hilton knew or should have known the location in question was not part of the Terrace View Park. He lived across the street and was fully aware that a designated parking lot for Terrace View Park existed on the opposite side of the park. But instead of allowing Mr. Hinton to simply leave the area, which would just be too much common sense, Sergeant Hilton instead extended the contact by demanding Mr. Hinton's identification.
You're not getting my ID for sitting in a parking lot now. Sorry.
Yeah.
So.
Whose car are you in?
Pardon me?
You're not shutting the door on me.
I'm not shutting the door, I'm rolling the window down. Now you can shut my door.
I am not shutting the door. I need your name. You are not free to leave.
I'm not giving you my name.
Okay. 551. I'll take those units code. Putting your shoes on for you. You're not going anywhere.
And why is that, sir?
Why? Because you're refusing to tell me who you are, and you're probably going to end up going to jail.
Oh, for not giving you my name?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, then you have at it.
Okay. Go ahead and stand up for me. Turn around, face the car. Turn around, face the car.
Don't put your hands on me, pal. Listen.
You are going to get hurt. If you
I
don't
am?
listen to what I'm telling you.
Are you audio video recording this?
I already told you that. Get on the,
Hey,
get on the ground. You're under arrest.
In the pinned comment below, I'll put a link to the uncensored raw use of force footage at the blog post, but according to the lawsuit, this is how it's really accurately described. Sergeant Hilton places his hands on Mr. Hinton's body, forcing Mr. Hinton backwards into the driver's side seat while also instructing Mr. Hinton to get on the ground. As Mr. Hinton falls backwards into the driver's seat of his vehicle, Hilton is physically controlling Mr. Hinton's movements. Sergeant Hilton has forced Mr. Hinton into the driver's seat while simultaneously ordering Mr. Hinton to, quote, get on the ground. Sergeant Hilton then advises Mr. Hinton that he's under arrest. As Mr. Hinton struggles to regain his balance, Sergeant Hilton strikes him at least once with a gloved, closed fist and then violently drags Mr. Hinton by his legs out onto the ground. Sergeant Hilton then simultaneously demands get on the ground, while striking Mr. Hinton in the face multiple times with a black, gloved, closed fist. Mr. Hinton is already on the ground, which Sergeant Hilton knows because that's where Sergeant Hilton violently dragged Mr. Hinton. Sergeant Hilton continues to demand that Mr. Hinton get on the ground, continuing the assault by grabbing Mr. Hinton's shirt before delivering the first knee strike to Mr. Hinton's rib cage side area. Sergeant Hilton continues to deliver violent and powerful knee strikes to Mr. Hilton's ribcage area. After deploying multiple violent strikes to the face and body of Mr. Hinton, Sergeant Hilton orders Mr. Hinton to give him his hands. Although badly injured, Mr. Hinton attempts to provide Sergeant Hilton with his hands by extending them out in front of his person. Despite Mr. Hinton clearly presenting his hands out in front of him, Sergeant Hilton continues to punch Mr. Hinton directly in the face and or body. Anytime Mr. Hinton instinctively tried to protect his face, Sergeant Hilton can be heard demanding, quote, give me your hands, while continuing to violently punch Mr. Hinton directly in the face and or body. Only after other law enforcement officers arrived on the scene did Sergeant Hilton command Mr. Hinton, on your stomach. Mr. Hinton immediately complied.
What part of that did you not understand?
I didn't do anything. You hit me so many times. Why? Why did you hit me?
Because you weren't listening.
Why?
Now you want to tell me your name?
Oh, my name is Kevin. Oh, please.
What's that? I don't know. Make sure and take a picture of that sign right there.
In what should be the most useful parts of this body cam footage, Sergeant Hilton turns off the audio of his body cam, and he's clearly discussing the incident, providing his own statements, which could have been useful to investigators, lawyers, and judges afterwards. But we don't have it because the evidence was intentionally destroyed by him turning off the audio. But it wasn't just Sergeant Hilton. According to the lawsuit, it says that after other law enforcement officers arrive on the scene, they collectively turn off their body cam audio recordings. So they all did it at the same time. And during this time, one or more of the deputies, including Sergeant Hilton, are seen laughing, joking, and mocking Mr. Hinton over his injuries. At the time these officers are seen laughing and joking with their body cams off, Mr. Hinton was suffering from fractures of ribs 5 through 12, and also fractures of ribs 8, 10, 11, and 12, displaced fractures of ribs 9 and 10, a collapsed lung, and multiple lacerations and contusions requiring sutures and medical care. And according to the lawsuit, this conduct by law enforcement officers created an environment of intimidation and coercion where emergency medical staff were unable or unwilling to perform an adequate evaluation of Mr. Hinton. Despite the terrible shape that he was in, personnel on the scene evaluated Mr. Hinton and determined that Mr. Hinton was medically cleared, releasing him to law enforcement to be transported and booked into the Spokane County Jail. That is insane. Mr. Hinton was placed under arrest and transported to the county jail by an officer named Davis. But thankfully, the Spokane County Jail staff refused to book Mr. Hinton due to the severity of his injuries. Only then did Spokane County Deputy Davis transport Mr. Hinton to the emergency room, where he was finally evaluated by medical staff. But even as he sat there injured, severely injured, and he's finally getting some medical treatment or evaluation, Deputy Davis refused to remove Mr. Hinton's handcuffs during his medical evaluation and treatment. This man had all these broken ribs and a collapsed lung, and this scumbag, Deputy Davis, had him in handcuffs. Only after Davis was informed that Mr. Hinton would be admitted to the hospital did he finally remove the handcuffs after several hours. But get this is the craziest part of this whole story. Spokane County Sheriff's Department has a policy of reviewing all incidents involving an officer's use of force to determine whether or not the use of force was appropriate under the circumstances. So this use of force report, which they call a blue team report, was created and submitted documenting and supposedly justifying the use of force that occurred here against Mr. Hinton. Blue team reports are reviewed by a supervising officer specifically trained to determine whether an officer's use of force is appropriate under the circumstances. A blue team report was generated as a result of the assault by Sergeant Hilton on Mr. Hinton. Sergeant Hilton's supervising officer, Spokane County Sheriff Sergeant Richard Gear, approved the use of force implemented by Sergeant Hilton against Mr. Hinton. Let me repeat that. Supervising Officer Richard Gear reviewed this use of force, and he approved it, at least before the public found out about it. Now for the latest update, on August 26th, the Spokesman Review newspaper in Spokane, Washington, reported that Spokane County, Spokane, I'm sure I'll be told 1,000 times, Sergeant Clay Hilton is set to be charged now with assault and falsifying a police report for the violent arrest of 63-year-old Mr. Hinton. Yakima, I think that's right, County Prosecutor Joe Brusick said in an email Monday afternoon that his office recommended charges of second-degree assault with the aggravator of egregious lack of remorse and false swearing. A judge found probable cause Friday, and the charging documents were likely filed Monday or Tuesday of this week. Hilton will likely be arraigned on the charges at the end of September. When the newspaper called the sheriff's office, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office was unaware of the charges until it was alerted by the media, according to a statement. With this new information, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office is finalizing the internal investigation into this incident, the statement reads. We will provide an update once the internal investigation is complete while ensuring Washington state employment law and all employee contract processes are followed. Then, as we've already discussed, Mr. Hinton filed a lawsuit in federal court. I'll post a full copy of that complaint at the blog post. Over the past year, Hinton said that he has lived in fear of the sergeant who remains on paid administrative leave from the sheriff's office, pending the completion of an internal investigation. Hilton, again still employed by the sheriff's office, faces up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $20,000 for the second-degree assault charge, which is a Class B felony. False swearing is a gross misdemeanor, which carries a penalty of up to 90 days in jail and a $1,000 fine. I mean, give me like 20 minutes to research Washington state law, and I'll come up with like at least 6 or 7 other charges that this guy should be charged with. So that's the update. The sheriff's office, still a year later, has not been able to complete their internal investigation. They don't know if anybody did anything wrong. Meanwhile, criminal charges have been lodged by the prosecutor against the deputy that you see in this video, and they are pretty serious felony charges, and hopefully they follow through with that, so we'll have to stay on top of that. I'll also include the contact information for the sheriff's office there so that the public, if you're concerned, you can voice your concern to the sheriff and urge those public servants to do their job and complete that investigation, and to hold not only this officer who's now charged with a felony accountable, at least by firing his ass, but also the other officers who were involved, everyone involved in this. That officer, or that Deputy Davis, who kept him in handcuffs while he had all these injuries and tried to take him to jail instead of the hospital, he needs to be fired. Also charged. Every single one that touched this. Also any of the EMTs, the EMS guys who cleared him medically, I hope they are not receiving not only just taxpayer money. I hope they're receiving no money for doing the crappy job that they're doing. And you can help do your part by spreading this footage, spreading this information so that people are aware of how their public servants are abusing the power and the trust that we have placed in them. And you can see more of this by following along, by subscribing here, and also at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. A lot of interesting things going on. I had depositions all day yesterday in a civil rights case. I have depositions all day tomorrow in a civil rights case. So we've been very busy. Hopefully lots more updates to come. And we've been on a roll here with the updates, and they've all been pretty good. Follow along also on Twitter at John Bryan ESQ, or on X. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it. Yes, also, I know I have a sty. Thank you for telling me the millionth time. I'm told at this point that I can only get rid of it with a surgical procedure. But believe me, I'm trying all the home remedies that you all have suggested in the comments. So I greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much.